Bladder cancer has evolved a lot in the last 3 or 4 years. The field was stuck with chemotherapy that was largely, or has been largely ineffective in terms of long-term durable remissions. It's effective at controlling the disease in the short term, but the cancer returns, and the chemotherapy follows a law of diminishing returns, which means if you challenge with the same drugs a second time, they work less well, which means the overall survival of patients with metastatic disease was only about 12 months. Things stayed the same for maybe 40 years, and then 3 or 4 years ago, a series of new drugs, immune checkpoint inhibitors, the first of which in bladder cancer was atezolizumab, which is a PD-L1 inhibitor, showed significant activity. And in fact, it showed response rates of going up to the region of 45–50% in individuals who overexpressed the PD-L1 biomarker. From there was a debate about whether the biomarker was important or not. And in fact, that debate is ongoing. And as time goes by, the biomarker seems to become less and less relevant. And what we're beginning to see is both the PD-L1 positive and the negative populations responding to these drugs. Atezolizumab was developed first, but very close behind was pembrolizumab. And then subsequent to that, 3 other drugs, which I'll talk about in a second, have been developed. I'm going to focus on the first 2 to start with. The atezolizumab and pembrolizumab went through phase 1 trials. Both showed response rates in the region of somewhere between 20 and 30%, depending on your PD-L1 status. And essentially, what happened from there was atezolizumab went through a phase 2 program, a large phase 2 study of 300 patients, which is called IMvigor 210. And this trial showed efficacy for PD-L1 positive patients, again with response rates in the region of 25%, but also response rates in the PD-L1 negative patients of about 10 or 11%. And when you pull those together, in individuals who've previously failed chemotherapy, that looks better than chemotherapy. What we discovered was the drugs were well tolerated, and really importantly, if you responded, you had long-term durable responses. And that's really attractive for patients because the option of toxic chemotherapy with short-term goals or the potential for long-term durable, well-tolerated responses with immune therapy is attractive, and for that reason it was FDA approved, and that actually was probably FDA approved more than a year ago now. Pembrolizumab went down a slightly different route. It went down straight into a randomized phase 3 trial from the phase 1. And that phase 3 trial showed a hazard ratio of 0.73 for all comers, which is beating chemotherapy in the second-line space. And that's important. In fact, that's probably the first randomized phase 3 positive bladder cancer trial for 30, 40 years. Displacing chemotherapy, bringing a new class of drugs in. There was, again, enrichment for the biomarker, but also uncertainty around the biomarker. And for that reason, pembrolizumab has also recently been approved in that space. Both drugs have trials in untreated population metastatic disease. So I've been talking about platinum refractory disease. I can now talk about metastatic disease previously untreated. And both drugs have shown significant activity in that population as well, in those individuals who are not fit enough for standard cisplatin-based chemotherapy. And those individuals now, both are now approved, FDA approved in the US, where individuals who are not fit for cisplatin-based chemotherapy can get immune checkpoint inhibitors instead. And again, these drugs, although the response rates in the region of 20 or 30%, you can again enrich pembrolizumab up a bit with the biomarker, but there's uncertainty around that biomarker. But there is this hope of long-term durable remissions. And for that reason, these 2 drugs really have become established in this field. Following close behind there are 3 newer drugs. And those 3 newer drugs, avelumab, nivolumab, and durvalumab, all 3 drugs actually are being used in other tumours too, but are behind in bladder cancer. Nivolumab has similar activity to the other 2 agents in the phase 2 trials. Nivolumab has quite a robust phase 2 study in that setting, and nivolumab actually also, all 3 now have FDA approval. And then the other 2, avelumab, also has a phase 1 or phase 2 trial, and durvalumab, a large phase 1 stroke 2 trial. And so when you pull this together, we currently have 5 immune checkpoint inhibitors that are FDA approved in bladder cancer. They're showing similar efficacies in unselected patients in cisplatin refractory disease. There's randomized data for one of the drugs with pembrolizumab, and there's also frontline and second-line approval. So there's been a huge change. We've got some challenges in the future. We need to do better. We're only probably helping really one in big help, long-term durable remission, 1 in 5 patients. We need to do better than that. So immune combinations, immune targeted combinations, and immune chemotherapy combinations are important, number 1. Number 2, let's bring the drugs early in the disease setting. So treating patients once they've failed chemotherapy, with their life expectancy of 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 months, is much harder. If we bring the drugs earlier, we'll probably get longer benefits, in my opinion. And then the third piece is let's try and find which patients respond to therapy by using the biomarker, or, in my opinion, moving on from immunohistochemistry biomarkers into second-generation biomarkers, gene expression biomarkers, mutational burden, T-cell clonality, a huge area of work going on in that space. So a really exciting time in bladder cancer, dynamic changes, and the last piece of this jigsaw is we now have 4 or 5 massive randomized phase 3 frontline trials to supersede chemotherapy. We have 2 or 3 adjuvant studies to improve outcomes after surgery, and also some work in non-muscle invasive disease. So there are a series of new chapters which will be explored.